Yeah.
Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so that's okay. This is Vicky. We went out, and you're right when you said alleged abuse. Some of those were the same marks that were there before.
Were there before what?
When someone else made a referral in December when I had to go out to address it.
So wasn't there a new complaint already in place?
Like I just said to you that someone called in December, and some of the marks that were there when we went out recently were the same ones that were there before.
So what was the finding of that investigation? I didn't hear anything about that investigation.
Well, we're not saying it's abuse.
Okay, I'm saying I need something in writing because those are my children still.
Well, I'll see what I can do.
You'll see what you can do. So what were the findings?
That they're the same marks.
No, I'm saying what kind of marks? What kind of marks are they?
Well, you saw them, correct?
No, I'm asking you what are the findings?
Karen, I'm not gonna go through that with you.
Ma'am, please.
We
Ma'am,
went out
please.
and made the assessment.
Ma'am.
And we're saying that there is no abuse.
No, I'm saying what is it though? They clearly came from somewhere, ma'am.
We assessed that they were old.
No, I'm saying
Old
from what?
scratches.
They're old what?
Scratches.
They're old scratches.
That's what I said.
I thought there was a skin condition involved.
Is there?
Is there?
You tell me.
No, I'm asking you, ma'am. I mean,
Well, I
I'm
don't
concerned. I'm concerned about my children's welfare,
I'm glad to
ma'am.
know that you're concerned, and I appreciate you, taking him to the doctor and, so on and so forth. And we went out and assessed it and found that, it wasn't any abuse. Some of them were injuries, scratches that occurred during normal play.
Is that what was said?
That's what we're saying, yes.
Okay, what kind of play would get two marks on his chest like that down to the white meat? What happened?
They're old.
No, I'm saying what happened though when they were new.
See, if you could talk to Mom.
No, I'm talking to you, ma'am. I'm talking to you. You're the agency, ma'am. I have a TPO against the mother. I'm not going to talk to her about that, ma'am. I'm talking to you.
You guys will have to figure out a way to handle, because those are custody issues.
Ma'am, you're the agency, and doesn't she have an open case now?
Mm-hmm.
You're the caseworker, right?
I believe I am.
Yes, I was just asking you, ma'am, is there something wrong with that?
No.
Okay. So now you have an MD, you have an MD license where you know what injuries are.
Oh,
You can diagnose.
That's not a very bright question because you know that I do not.
Well, no, I thought you might have been able to make that kind of call because you did make that call, ma'am. The doctor, ma'am.
There's always drama.
No, there's not. I got every conversation recorded, and there is not drama.
Well,
It's you that is about the drama.
I'm really uncomfortable to be talking to you with the possibility that you are taking this conversation.
Well, if I'm telling the truth, I'm doing this to protect myself because people are trying to say that I'm causing drama when I'm not.
We can set up an appointment. You can come here. We can talk.
Well, I have to have an attorney present because I have to record this, but...
Fine. Okay. We handled it, and we found that there was no abuse.
I see that you're an MD, though. MD said something totally different.
Bye-bye.
You're not going to get away with this.
Okay.
Watch.
This is Debbie Shaw.
Yes, how you doing, Miss Shaw?
I'm fine.
Yes, I'm Terrence Pasqua. I called earlier and left a message. I'm returning your call.
Yes. How can I help you?
Well, I was instructed by FAIR to speak with you about my gripe, about my complaint about Vicky Carter and I guess her supervisor.
Okay. What's your concern?
My concern is that Miss Carter is diagnosing children. That's on her caseload. She's diagnosing people with skin conditions and she's treating people. She diagnosed my 3-year-old son with eczema, and she stated that he had 7 to 8 birthmarks, and I already know he doesn't have that many birthmarks, but that's besides the point. But she's diagnosing people and treating people, and she said she wiped some lotion on the boy and marks disappeared that were questionable, which a physician had said the marks looked like abuse. They were consistent with abuse. But Vicky Carter said that was eczema and excessive birthmarks.
Okay, can you tell me what case this is in? What, the child's name or the child's mother's name, or what case is this?
This is the case with Brittany Woods.
Okay.
The mother that left the children in the home by themselves with grease on the stove. I guess they call it a grease fire, but in this particular sheriff report, it said it turned into a fire, and the 3 children were left in there alone. And mother was not there, and when she got back to the scene, that's irrelevant as well.
Okay, where are the children now?
They're with mother.
They're with their mother?
Yes. She was never removed from mother from that incident.
Okay. And what are the children's names, sir?
Terrence Pascal Jr. And Cherish Pascal.
Okay. Okay. And your concern, at what point were you interacting with her and her supervisor where they were diagnosing illnesses and treating them?
Well, the most recent situation, because the first situation where the children were in the fire or whatever, I had court-ordered visitation, but it wasn't being, I guess I could say, I wasn't allowed to see my kids for 11 months. I took the mother to court for, what do you call that? When she didn't allow me to visit the kid, what do you call it? Contempt of court, because they didn't even pay that any attention. But I wound up having to pay an attorney $750 to get my visitation, whatever you call it, reenacted or whatever, and all of this was supposedly interrupted because I have a TPO against the mother, which I couldn't understand, and the TPO even stated that this should not interfere with my parenting rights or my parenting time or my visitation or any of that. But anyway, I had to pay an attorney $750 to do all of this and be able to see the kids. And when I finally got to see my son and my daughter after 11 months, my son had injuries on him that was consistent with abuse. And
okay, let me stop you a second. So tell me about when that was. When you saw him and you said...
The first visit was about 10 to 12 weeks ago, which I get bi-weekly visits every other week.
And where do you visit at when you visit?
At my home, because the children were living with me for a year until they were placed back with the mother, even though she didn't have an income or housing. But that's a whole different situation. Okay. But the situation is the same because Vicky Carter has already told me that she was a very close personal friend of the caseworker that was removed from the case, which was questionable anyway.
So, who was that?
That was Stephen Johnson, the unlicensed worker.
So Stephen Johnson was removed from the case?
Well, after he placed the children back with the mother, that was it for him. But I have filed a complaint or several complaints against him through FAIR, and my complaints were substantiated. FAIR had noted on a typed report that the children should have stayed in my custody, but at that time I was told that Mr. Johnson was not supposed to have any more dealings with my case. When Mr. Johnson wound up showing up in court and omitting the findings from the FAIR complaint against himself, where he went in and the courts noted on the final order to give the mother custody that they based everything and their decision on what Stephen Johnson, the caseworker, said. Which was he failed to even include what Fair said, and he failed to include what his bosses had said, his manager and his supervisor.
Okay, and when was that? Because that would have been a different.
That's why I said all of that's irrelevant, but that brings us up to date about why I have the complaint against Vicky Carter, because she is personal friends with him, and she is, I mean, it's a lot of questionable things going on. Like I said, she's making diagnoses in my son when a physician had said that the injuries were consistent with physical abuse.
Okay, and what physician was that said they were consistent with physical abuse?
Well, you know what? I have these papers here, but I'm going to allow you guys to do your job because I'm tired of complaining and digging through this stuff because I myself am a student. And I understand all of that. But hold on, excuse me, ma'am. But this is your subordinate, and she, Vicky Carter, has made, you could ask her about this case. I'm not even going to get into the details of it because it is a Montgomery County Sheriff's Office report, and I'll just read to you what this paragraph that concerns me says. Later in the day on February 25th, 2013, I spoke with Vicky Carter, who is the CSB agent currently assigned to the case. She told me she went to the residence and checked on the children. She had an open case for several years and was familiar with a custody dispute between the mother suspect and the father, Terrence Pascal. Now, first of all, right there, she's only been on this case for 1 year. How does she even have knowledge of this woman having a case open for several years? But anyway, she advised that the children were fine, and along with her supervisor, were satisfied that none of the injuries were new. Okay, she told me she put moisture lotion on the marks in question and they went away. She assured me she had no concern and no further investigation was needed.
This is in the police report.
Yes, the child had the alleged injuries. The child has 7 to 8 birthmarks and has eczema. She didn't say the child might have eczema. She said the child has eczema. And she treated my child. Now, this is the same worker that went against me even after I hired a personal attorney at their advisement. They advised me to hire an attorney. I hired an attorney. Then all of a sudden, Vicky Carter and company got an attitude with me and said, I was being arrogant because I had an attorney. But they were refusing to even communicate with me about any of these things that were going on. And then now she's going to say that my child has 7 to 8 birthmarks. I mean, there's footage of the child when he was a newborn baby. It wasn't no 7 to 8 birthmarks on that child. And then the type of marks, we're going to go against what a physician says when she can see fingerprints and marks on the child's chest that are consistent with a different type of an injury.
And you have document, and I can ask, and I'll look into this, but you have documentation from a physician that says that in this same event that there were marks that were consistent with abuse?
Yes, ma'am. 2 different physicians. And then one physician said that there was no eczema.
I'm writing this down. 2 physicians said no eczema.
One physician said no eczema. One physician said physical abuse. And see, I was reported to go to the care house. Now, I'm sure everyone that's been working, as a caseworker or anything with the Montgomery County courts or anything like that would understand that if there is alleged abuse and one parent has the children and the other parent is the alleged abuser, that when you go to the care house, that appointment is solely for the purpose of interviewing the children. Am I correct?
I don't work at care houses.
You said, but is when you get an appointment, when you get scheduled for an appointment to the care house?
It's generally for the children to be interviewed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was left up to Vicky Carter to call me, or it was another lady, Charity, or someone that was a worker that was supposed to get back in contact with me and let me know that I was supposed to keep my children as opposed to returning them to the mother.
Okay.
So they could be interviewed by the care house.
Okay.
Now, so in other words, I was not notified by anyone at Children's Services, Charity, or Vicky Carter to keep the children. And I even showed the paperwork to the sheriff at where we exchanged the children for the visit. So I went up there. I was like, well, if the children have or if the child has allegedly been abused, should I be returning this child to the mother after this? And the sheriff just looked at me and shook his head like everything else when something is going on that's not supposed to go on, and said, well, they said they already have an emergency plan in place. But we didn't allow these children to be interviewed, which was a part of the plan. Which the children could have been returned to the mother, next day or whatever. But the point is, Children's Services never contacted me and told me to keep these children for the interview at Care House. Instead, that is when Vicky Carter said, we don't need to do all of that. I done went back out to the house, and then I got a phone conversation where she actually said some of the injuries were not there. And then I questioned her about, was there supposed to be a skin condition involved? And then she questioned me as if like, was there? I mean, she was very unprofessional and very rude. I mean, that phone conversation will show it all. Where she was very rude with me, and all I'm trying to do is find out about my child's welfare. But she's out here treating and diagnosing and treating people with injuries, kids with injuries and stuff. She didn't have to even touch my child. She could have, if she wanted to put lotion on the child, she could have told the mother to do it. No one's concerned about him being 3 years old, going on 4, and not being potty trained, and he can speak fluently.
So do you believe the children should not be with their mother? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is there's a lot of things that have not been documented with the mother, which goes back to Steven Johnson, which that is, that's supposed to be old news, but he had the findings from a fair meeting had spoke to the complaints that I made against Steven Johnson, but he had that I guess you could say stricken from the court record as a false document with the signature of a caseworker, or with the signature of a worker from FAIR on it. That document had that on there, but that was stricken from the official court record when the children were placed back with their mother by Steven Johnson, that I was not allowing the mother to visit with the children on the regular, and I had no income and all of this kind of stuff. All of that was erroneous. Those were the complaints I had against Steven Johnson. He placed the children back with the mother, and his testimony said that I was trying to submit a false document to courts when it had Mary, I think her name was Mary Ann Robinson, on the document, and I'm going to forge her signature and put you guys a heading on a letter, and I'm going to come in court and I'm going to forge that. But I have documentation where that was said to be a false document. And so my complaint is, and then they even said that there is allegations of father having drug abuse issues, and that was not even brought up in court. When we went for, we don't know, because Vicky Carter said it was already in the case plan and she had nothing to do with that. That's immediately when I went out and hired an attorney, because I go to St. Clair. I have one more semester to go and I'll be out of there for social work. I'll be going to a 4-year college to get my bachelor's degree. So, and none of that is even put into any of my records. None of that's in there. They say nothing about, I shouldn't be in any of these records, because when the mother left the children in there with this fire set and all of this going on, they included my name in there like I was somewhere around. I hadn't seen my kids for 11 months and filed charges against the mother for contempt of court for not allowing me to see my children for 11 months.
In the TPO that you say there is that did you file that so that she can't come around you, or the other way around? Did she file it so you can
No, I filed the TPO against the mother, which I'm sure that upsets a lot of people because people didn't even want me to come to court to hear what happened to my children. That's why I wasn't even notified. I had to see that on the news. Usually they don't even mention anything on the news until they notify people. Children's Services knew all about me, but they didn't notify me about this because they knew that, oh, well, father has been trying to keep custody of the children, not get custody, but maintain custody, because I had custody of the children for over a year.
And then when Mr. Johnson went to court, the custody went back to their mother?
Yes, ma'am. And the mother, and after, this is after Stephen Johnson told me that the mother needed, and Carol Rothfuss was involved, and my understanding after talking to Miss Rothfuss and Stephen Johnson, the mother was supposed to have maintained housing for at least a year and then had an income for at least a year. She had no income or no housing, and the children were placed back with her. They were taken out of daycare and, school and all this kind of stuff, without anybody going to the school to ask them what kind of relationship me and the children had or anything.
Did you, at the time, and Mr. Johnson's not in my area, but at the time, did you speak with his supervisor and manager?
Yes, they both were at the meeting with FAIR. Both of them. Yeah, Dale Smith and Mary Jane Johnson.
Jane Johnson, correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And the end result from that meeting was, this is what Mary Ann Robinson typed on the paper. Mm-hmm. We do not understand why our agency is still involved with this case. We need to allow the father to go ahead and maintain custody, and we can get out of this family's business. Basically, that's what that said.
Okay.
And Stephen Johnson had that particular report stricken from the record, and it says it in the court document that it was stricken from the record as hearsay and as a false document.
Okay. So that would be something the attorneys did, not necessarily...
No, there was no attorneys involved. That was something Stephen Johnson said, which I keep trying to tell you people, the courts threw him under the bus. It's all on him. I got the documents, it's online, everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like for people to hear about this story.
So
my children have been endangered. Stephen Johnson he closed a case on my children's mother, and she was 8 months pregnant with the child, which subsequently became the excuse for her leaving all 3 of the children there by themselves. Because when she had an open case, there was only 2 children. But then her case was closed when she was 8 or 9 months pregnant. And then she was supposed to be going over to Kroger to get formula for the new child, which was an added risk factor, which was not reported by Stephen Johnson.
So is that Cherish or a third child that was
There's a third child that was never reported by Stephen Johnson.
Okay, and who's that child? What's that
child's name is Jesse Haynes. And the child has a last name, but no one knows who's the father of that child is.
Jesse? Did you say Jesse?
Yes, Jesse.
Jesse. So Brittany actually has 3 children.
Yes, ma'am.
With her, Terrence, Cherish, and Jesse.
Yes.
Okay.
And she's only been charged with. Now, when we went to court about her being sentenced or whatever and being charged for leaving the children alone at home, first it was my understanding that she was supposed to have 2 counts of child endangering. We agreed on that. My attorney was in there and everything. And then I turned around and I talked to the people at Care House. Next thing I know, there's only 1 count of child endangering. And mother is maintaining housing with Northland Village Apartments, and she started the fire endangering other families' lives and property and committed a crime. of child endangering and still has a property up there, or is still allowed to live up there in Northland. I personally know people that have been evicted for less. And someone's swinging the bat for this young lady, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it, because Steven Johnson made a mistake, and the entire agency is trying to cover for him. I know that to be a fact.
So when you talked with FAIR, did you talk with Maria Geiger? Do you know who you talked to?
No, I've tried. I've got sent back down the ladder, and then I had to go back through Mary Jane Johnson. I've had to go back through Mary Jane Johnson, and this was through, I forgot what this gentleman's name was, but I've got all of this. I've got it all on record. But I spoke with a guy, and he told me to speak back with her, and I'm like, I've already complained about her through FAIR, and he was like, oh, she's going to sing a different tune. Yeah, she sung a different tune about, well, you need to visit with your children and forget what Steven Johnson did and all of this. Then she turned around in a later conversation and said, oh, well, I didn't have anything to do with trying to get you to see your kids. After she said, well, you need to see your children, and that's important, and then turned around and went against what she said. And people don't understand how stupid and silly they sound until they actually hear themselves back. And, you know, it just, you're lying and you're contradicting yourself. I mean, it's silly. I have to keep a record of what I say, because I've never did anything to any caseworker to even have them to believe that I was hostile in any way, other than filing a complaint against Steven Johnson. Now, the mother, on the other hand, which is when me and Mr. Johnson's problem started, is when he was not recording what the mother was doing at the visits, when she had to have supervised visits at the agency. She had started a fight with...
Were they in foster care then?
No, they never were. I had custody...
Back when Mr. Johnson had the case, they were...
I had custody of the children.
You had this then?
Yes,
okay.
Because I was always involved. I'm the reason the children were... Well, when there was one child, she was removed from the mother at birth from the beginning. This woman has 3 children and 3 removals.
Okay. Older children?
Yeah, 3 interventions. No, the same children. The first child was removed, and they're trying to keep that a secret because the mother said she was going to kill the child or something like that. And that's when I heard about it, and I stepped in. The mother didn't have an income or housing. I stepped in and volunteered my income and my housing. And all of a sudden, the order to place the children with a cousin of hers, of the mother's, was overturned, and they placed the children back with mother because mother was going to be living with me. And then that's where the second child came about. That's when the children were placed with me.
Okay.
After the mother was leaving the children with me and not showing up and being gone for a week and stuff like that, Children's Services just said, okay, you can have the children. And I was like, thank you, because now I can have a schedule. So, I mean, you know, you can't put kids in the classes and stuff like that if you got a mother that drops the children off with you, then they come back and get them. So that's why they gave me interim custody. So after the interim custody, this is when Mr. Johnson went in court after I filed complaints against him, and he placed the children back with the mother. And he told me he was going to do this. I mean, I wouldn't make this stuff up. This man...
And then he closed the case, correct? Shortly after that, he closed the case, you said?
Yes, he did. But then that's when I called back up to the agency and I complained, and it went back and forth. And then that's when they started transporting my children to me when they only had protective custody.
Who did?
This was Mary Jane Johnson. This was Dale Smith. This was...
this was back on what I would call the old opening, not... This involvement with Miss Carter and Miss Holbert at this point would be... It's a new... I mean, I realize it's all...
Yeah, it's a new situation, but it's the same situation being carried on through Vicky Carter by saying, you know, she proclaimed that personally to me, like, oh, that's my personal friend. And I'm like, well, wow, how are we? I mean, in the same conversation, she said, I'm a new worker. We doing different things. We gonna just forget about what Steve Johnson did. But how are we gonna do that? And then you coming up with phantom accusations saying, oh, there's accusations that the mother and the father are on drugs. And I'm like, come on, man. And even in this recent semi-annual review, they're saying that, oh, the visits with the father are going great, but then 2 or 3 pages later it's saying the father haven't seen the children and all that. I mean, I've been dealing with this stuff throughout the entire caseload. I mean, this is what I'm going to school for. Even if I wasn't going to school for this, I've got older children. I've been involved with your agency for over 20 years. I got people mad at me, my mother and stuff don't even really deal with me because of this stuff. I got a sister that works with Job and Family Services that's heard a couple of these phone conversations that's like, well, now she's starting to change her mind about it. But everybody always thought I'm picking with somebody. I'm like, how the hell am I going to pick with an agency about my children? I'm being picked on by this man and bullied by Steven Johnson, and because he works there and knows people. I didn't even know that this man was not licensed and making decisions like that by himself. And I have Mary Jane Johnson saying that there was supposed to be a situation with joint custody. So how is somebody gonna say you're supposed to give joint custody or speak on joint custody, and these are your bosses, and you turn around and do what you feel like doing, and you don't even have a license, and you're transporting children and all this kind of stuff?
Wait, when you say a license, he doesn't have a driver's license?
No, a license to practice. I'm glad you asked me to clarify that, because yes, he doesn't have a license to practice as a caseworker. That's what the NASW told me.
Well, there isn't a license to practice as a caseworker. There are qualifications.
Well, he's not a licensed caseworker.
And there are social work licenses that people can apply for, but you don't have to have a license.
Yeah, I know you don't have. You can work under people, right? But we can just have people, at a level. Yeah, that's what I'm being educated for. But I'm saying that there's not a different degree. So if I go and get a license, I'm not allowed to make I'm not more qualified to make different decisions, I should say, as opposed to being like a guy that is not licensed. Wouldn't there be a trust issue? Isn't that why I would have a boss, and wouldn't that be why I would have a supervisor and a manager if I was unlicensed?
No, everybody has people above them.
Okay, so I could have a license and my supervisor could be not licensed.
Yes.
Oh, so there's non-licensed supervisors.
It's possible, depending on what their degree is in, and some of them might have licensure in something else, like counseling.
Okay, but counseling with that, I mean, I'm not going to get into all other legalities and all that, but counseling, would that say that I can diagnose someone with a medical condition and then treat them?
Well, your social work license would not, that doesn't give you the ability to diagnose illness. Now, we could say that looks like eczema. I've seen eczema before.
No, I'm saying with that, okay, so she could put that in a record, which will stop other people from investigating that further.
No,
that wouldn't be. Hold on. I think I got it. Would that be obstruction of justice if somebody would stop an investigation because of what their opinion was, and their opinion was respected as a professional?
Do you mean a police investigation?
Yes,
or a
police investigation, a criminal investigation, because a children's services worker did not allow the children to be talked to and spoken with and interviewed or whatever, and then that worker themselves would say, okay, this is eczema. I know the physician may have said that this looks like abuse, but to keep the care house from getting involved and to keep the sheriff's detective from even looking at the injuries, I'll say, oh, everything is all good and it's eczema. And I treated it myself. And the scars went away, everybody. And now it's all good. Don't even come out and look at these children or talk to them for that matter.
Well, we don't have that kind of power over the police.
Well, that's what she did.
The police.
That's what Vicky Carter did. Hold on, let's not muddy the water. Let's stick with what Vicky Carter said. That's why I'm making the complaint. So whenever I can speak to someone about this, because I've got to get on with my day.
Okay.
And what can I do about that? Because that's what Vicky Carter did in a nutshell.
All right, and so that we can get on with our day is what I need to say, because there's kind of some gaps and holes in what I'm writing.
Okay, well, what I basically said is she diagnosed my son and she treated him. Does she have the power to do that as her superior? Could you say that she has the power to go out and do that?
Who had custody of the
No, does she have power to do that? That's my question. Regardless of who, can she, as a caseworker, no, hold on, plain and simple, as a caseworker, does Vicky Carter and her supervisor have the power to go out to a child's house? Although a physician said it looks like physical abuse, Vicky Carter can go out there and overturn that and tell the workers from Care House or the advocates that no, there's no need to come out here, and tell the sheriff's deputy that no, there's no reason to come out here and look at these injuries in person. Although the sheriff's what do they call it? The evidence technician van came out and took 24 photographs just for the fun of it. But Vicky Carter can outweigh all of these people and other nurses and medical personality and personnel. That she can just change up everything and say, nope, that wasn't abuse, y'all, and I don't even want an explanation for where these scratches came from. Just because I haven't seen my children in 11 months, and she fought tooth and nail so that I could not have visitation with my children, and she thinks I want her touching my son with her old decrepit ass.
Wait a minute, she fought tooth and nail for you not to see your son in those 11 months?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Why was that?
They had no reason. My attorney, I mean, why would I have to pay somebody $750 to go out here and do this? I'm a disabled veteran. I don't have money to do that. I want to see my children, and I was concerned about their safety. And then when I see my children after 11 months, my son has whelps and stuff all over his body.
Whelps?
Yes, whelps.
Okay,
those were the injuries that I reported back in December when Miss Carter said she went out and investigated and said they were eczema and they were old scratches. And then weeks later, I finally took my son to a physician. This is weeks later, after the scars have had time to heal, even after I saw them they were old. And this physician was like, oh, I'm concerned about the way this in his chest looks. I mean, it was marks all over the boy. And they weren't birthmarks and stuff like that. That's why I'm like, come on, which ones were birthmarks then? I mean, she didn't get to compare notes with anyone. She was the only one that looked at the injuries. I'm saying, how come the detective didn't get to see the injuries? And how come the worker from Care House could not see the injuries and compare notes and say, oh, okay, well, it could have been this? Because I said, okay, they're marks from playing. Where is something in this house that somebody can point to that caused him to have 2 marks down to the white meat in the middle of the boy's chest and have a welt on his chest? Come on. Do you think a physician is going to actually say that looks like physical abuse? Because that's a strong accusation to say about someone and a child. And I told the physician, like, I haven't seen my children in over 11 months, and I've had visitation for like about 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, when I first saw the injuries, I took video footage of them. I did not want to be rattling my kids by as soon as they come see me after 11 months, I'm taking them down to children. I didn't want to do that. That's why I videographed that and took that down there to children's, and they wouldn't accept looking at them. So then I brought my son in maybe about 4 or 5 weeks after that. And the injuries were still deemed to look like and be consistent with physical abuse. But then, here it is, Vicky Carter says, that's not physical abuse. Them some old scratches, some of them are. And I'm like, some of them? Well, what in the hell are you talking about, lady? Some? Where'd the other ones come from? Where did those originate? Show me the swing in your backyard or whatever caused this scar. Because if a child gets injured like that, they're going to be crying, there's going to be some blood, and there's going to be some alcohol and somebody trying to rub some gauze on something. So somebody can't offer me an explanation of what exactly happened. Because my child, the same boy got injured jumping off a bed, but my mother was like, and his 6-year-old sister said, he jumped off the bed with a little trash can on his head that they keep, it's a little plastic trash can. I guess he got that off the Kohler commercial. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. But yeah, they went.
At this point, what I need to do is go in and, because I'm not familiar with this case situation, I need to go in here and review the case and look at what you're saying and get back with you.
Yes, and then I will add, go all the way back to the times of Iris Blanchard and look at, because Iris Blanchard was given a promotion during a case, just to get her off of the case. Because this is when I stepped in with the first child with Miss Woods. The first removal, because she was placed back with mother based on my credentials and what I was doing. And like I'm saying, if these people want to add me in as a part of this case plan, please put my true credentials in, that I made the Dean's List on more than 2 occasions, and I will be completing my associate's degree for social work in another semester, and I'm going for the bachelor's degree program. I'm just like, why don't people, this is all unreal to me. It's crazy. I've got documents, and so I had to contact you before FAIR would even step in and do anything.
Okay. So, well, give me some time, and I'll probably talk with FAIR too. Give me some time here to look at this and try to put the pieces together.
Okay, I'm going to just ask, just please look at mother's entire history with Children's Services, because that's the main concern. That hasn't even been reviewed.
Okay. I will do that. Okay.
I thank you for calling me. Have a good weekend.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.